Oh boy, Kyle Shanahan just dropped the hammer. We have some breaking news that we need to react to immediately. So that's exactly what we are going to do. Boy, the off season is off to literally a hot start, and we're going to talk about it all right now. But first, I need you to drop an SDS in the chat and we're going to react to this big news right after this. Let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to discuss the news that 49ers Kyle Shanahan and staff, whether general manager John Lynch, whoever made the final decision, they have fired Steve Wilks. He will no longer be the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers after the one season with the San Francisco 49ers. And to be honest, I'm not necessarily surprised by this. And I think Kyle Shanahan essentially alluded to this yesterday when he spoke at the podium. He was asked about essentially Steve Wilks coming back. He says he hasn't thought about it, he hasn't watched the tape, he hasn't looked at it. So very non-committal in regards to bringing Steve Wilks back. And then about 4 minutes later into the press conference, he was asked again, will Steve Wilks be back next season? And Kyle's response is, I expect all our coaches to be back. Well, I expect a lot of things too, Kyle. And again, where this is the smoke season's already started, baby. Smoke season has already begun, and we got our first smoke yesterday with Kyle being non-committal to Steve Wilks, which was basically telling us that the door was open for this to happen. And not even 24 hours later, Steve Wilks has been fired as the defensive coordinator for this job. Now, I'm also not surprised for multitude of different reasons, but I really do believe that in the final overtime was very indicative of where we stood in this scenario. And I'll explain why. Steve Wilks, we can even go back to Minnesota. We can go back to Minnesota. When was Minnesota? Minnesota 49ers played on Monday Night Football on October 23rd in week 7. This is when the Steve Wilks firestorm really started. Steve Wilks called a zero blitz at the end of halftime, which resulted in it was like a 70, 80-yard touchdown from Kirk Cousins to end the half. And based on the down and distance, based on the play clock availability running down, the fact that they called the zero blitz in that moment, which leaves your defense susceptible to big plays like that, created a huge firestorm. And then the 49ers, they lost the following game to the Bengals. And then that was where the whole situation with Steve Wilks coming down from the booth onto the sideline outside the bye in week 10 against the Jags. And it felt like it kind of steadied out, and Steve was finding more of a rhythm, and they're having more continuity on the sideline and all those different types of things. But again, when you go to the Super Bowl and Steve Wilks is showing zero blitz in overtime against Patrick Mahomes, and Kyle overrules him And the biggest moment in the biggest game, I really do believe that tells us everything that we needed to know. Kyle called the timeout, got them out of that play, and I think that right there is a microcosm of the lack of trust that Kyle had in Steve Wilks, especially in the biggest game. So, wow. Steve Wilks is out 24 hours after Kyle Shanahan said he expected all his coaches to return. And from some of the reports that I've seen, I saw Kate Rooney of Cron 4 essentially say that it comes down to just not being a good fit in all reality. Um, Kate Rooney quoted Kyle Shanahan saying, "Once I realized a different direction was better for our organization, it was something I had to do." So clearly, it just wasn't a fit. I think we saw those issues percolating early on within Steve Wilks' tenure with the San Francisco 49ers. Again, that's why I looked back at the Minnesota game when all of this stuff really popped up. And so now here we are, no defensive coordinator, but that doesn't mean we're done. It's not like, oh, no defensive coordinator. All right, on to the next. No, it is time to discern and figure out who is going to be the replacement for Steve Wilks. Obviously, they need a defensive coordinator to right the ship. And so let's set the structure for the upcoming defensive coordinator so that we can help give a kind of an educated guess at who we think could come in, right? We just can't pick names out of nowhere and just throw them in. We have to think about this logically. So this is where it currently stands. So as we know, with what the 49ers did this last year with Steve Wilks, what they did was they kept all their position coaches, Chris Kosuric, Johnny Holland, Bullocks. They kept all their guys and they kept the same scheme. What the plan was is to bring Steve Wilks in, plug him into their scheme, their system, their way of doing business on the defensive side, and him just adding to it and or evolving it to a better place. Well, that didn't work. It didn't work this time around. And clearly that's why Steve Wilks is finding himself on the outside. He didn't fit into what the 49ers have established. So now what they have to discern is who else can they fit into this defensive coordinator role who understands the defense, understand the personnel, understand what they're trying to accomplish, and how they go about this. So I see. Let's wipe the slate clean in the chat. Let's wipe the slate clean in the chat. I'm gonna ask you guys right now, and I want to see what you guys think, and we'll kind of work our way through. So in the chat, let me know who you guys want to see take over as the defensive coordinator. Light it up, drop it in the chat, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on Twitter, whether you're watching on YouTube. Who do you want to see take over as the defensive coordinator? And then we will talk about each of your suggestions, whether we think it's a good idea, maybe not so good of an idea. So let me see what you guys are thinking in the chat, because I want to see what the vibes are and what we're thinking about. Honestly, I see 4 candidates that are at the top of the list for you guys, and some I like Some I don't like, and we're going to talk about why here in just a second, but keep getting them in here. Um, and so the main four that I am seeing so far are Bill Belichick, obviously didn't land a head coaching job this hiring cycle. He was let go of the from his duties with the Patriots. I see Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel was, I believe, a former coach of the year with the Tennessee Titans. I believe Vrabel led his team to the AFC Championship game with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Um, the other option that I'm seeing in the chat is, someone just dropped a good one, and I'm going to get to that, but I haven't seen that one all that often. I'm seeing Richard Sherman being thrown out quite a bit. Richard Sherman obviously has discussed a ton about the 49ers issues on defense. And again, Sherman has an understanding of what they're trying to do. He played in the scheme. He gets it. That's why he was a great source when it came to trying to understand what was going on with the defense. And he had ways that he would fix it and things like that. And so we got Belichick, we've got Vrabel, we have Richard Sherman, and I'm seeing a lot of Rex Ryan as well. So as we know, Rex Ryan has had head coaching experience. He's a defensive coach on the defensive side. And so seeing a ton about Rex Ryan. I'm also seeing some of you guys drop in the chat the potential of Ron Rivera. I don't mind that. I don't mind the Ron Rivera either. That one is an interesting one to me as well. I see people talking about who else? I see Fangio flying around, but again, I don't necessarily see Fangio being a fit because he runs a 3-4 defense and they would likely want to do something. They would want to keep their structured 4-3 wide 9 type of defense. And so I don't know if I think, they already had Fangio in last year and it didn't work out. I see another name that you guys are throwing around in the chat, and boy, how wild would this be? How wild would it be to see Pete Carroll on the sidelines wearing 49er gear again? What's up, man? What's up, man? Could you imagine? Could you imagine Pete Carroll? I mean, we run kind of like an offshoot of like the Seattle defense, right? So you get Pete Carroll on. All right, this is what we're going to do, man. Hey, listen. All right. We didn't like the idea of Richard Sherman coming over. So I don't think it would be Pete Carroll. I really don't. But if it was, maybe. I don't know. I'm not ruling it out. I'll tell you this: the last time we played Pete Carroll, and he's over there, they kept showing him on the sideline just like throwing his gum into the stands. I was like, oh my gosh, get this guy off my screen. That would be wild, though. That would absolutely be wild. We got a couple super chats coming in. Gammon says, we lost our assistant general manager, assistant head coach, pass run coordinator, defensive coordinator. Yeah, we've had some coaching changes here come up, people. Obviously, if you guys haven't heard, The 49ers lost Daryl Tapp today, assistant defensive line coach to the Commanders. They lost Clint Kubiak, who's the passing game coordinator. They lost Anthony Lynn to the it's the Commanders as well, right? There's been so many coaching moves. I have to double check. Um, but I'm pretty sure Anthony Lynn goes to the Commanders as well as the run game coordinator. Yes, he does. And they lost assistant offensive line coach James Craig yesterday to the Raiders. So that's four coaches out the door. And yeah, so the 49ers have to backfill a little bit here, and they have to go out and get some more guys. Gammon says Ravens secondary coach Chris Hewitt could be a potential guy that the 49ers could go after. Brother Really Kyle says, good job, Kyle. Take scrutiny off you and your offense, big brain. So brother, is this brother Bob? Is that brother Bob? Is that the guy? I think I've seen I'm not sure if that's him or not, but I think I've seen him around. Boxing fan says just promote someone in the organization. Why bring in someone new if you're not going to let them run their system and forced them to learn and run ours? I do think that's a very valid point, and I think that's why this didn't necessarily work out with Steve Wilks, is because that's a huge part of it. You're taking a guy with like 18 years of experience, and you're trying to force him into a little bit of a different scheme. You're trying to force him into a different scenario where he's kind of got to adopt his coaching style, his play style into what the 49ers are already doing. That's difficult. I have to say, I do sympathize a little bit with Steve Wilks having to kind of fit into that role, because if it's not a natural fit, I think it becomes kind of chaotic, and it does feel like it wasn't just a natural fit. And although the thought process was there, it just didn't feel like it worked out in the end. I will share with you what Matt Barrows said about a potential internal candidate. He says defensive passing game Nichols coach Nick Sorensen. He's had a hand in a lot of areas, LBs, cornerbacks, nickel corners in recent years. Would have a global view of the defense. Shanahan said he'd prefer to stick with 49ers current system, but not married to it. Ooh, that's the first time I've seen that. He says he'd prefer to stick with the 49ers current system, but not married to it. Ooh, Matty Barrows. I think the little tidbit at the end is what I think opens up the door a little bit. Not being married to it means he's open. He's open to potentially something else. So honestly, if it were up to me, I think Mike Vrabel would be a great coach to bring in. I don't know if Mike Vrabel, I don't know. I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't know the exact scheme that Mike Vrabel is running. In regards to, I would imagine, I'm pretty sure he runs a 4-3. Just based on thinking of how they drafted in the past, the type of edge rushers that they went after in the draft. And they were typically a pretty good drafting team under Vrabel. I know they had some issues with their general manager, like trading guys away. That obviously didn't help them. But I'm just trying to look really quickly. If you guys know in the chat, and you know right off the bat, you know what he's running out there. Feel free to let me know, but I'm pretty sure he's running 4-3, but I got to try to figure that out. I'm just not familiar with him from that standpoint. But what I do know about Vrabel, he's a player's coach. Think D'Amico Ryans. That's kind of like where I'm at with him. He's kind of like that D'Amico Ryans in a sense of former player, played at an extremely high level, can relate to players on that level, and being a defensive guy, just wired a little bit. Do they run a 3-4? Ah, Vrabel running a 3-4 out here. Come on, Vrabel, switch it up. No, I can't. I was like, what's Vrabel running out here? Mike Vrabel defensive scheme. What are we running out here, Vrabel? What are we running out here? Anyways, I do think it is. It could be a 3-4, which again goes against what the 49ers like to do. So I think that's going to be a part of it, though. They want to maintain the wide nine. I think that's the ultimate key here. Is so whoever they bring in, can they operate the wide nine? Can they have success within the wide nine? And I think that's ultimately what they want. They want this thing built around Nick Bosa and the defensive line. Can you execute a scheme and run it through the wide nine lens? I think that's really what they want. Do you think there's a possibility of Aziz reunion? Ooh, I would love an Aziz reunion. My only thing is Aziz, I think, became the franchise leading tackler in Tennessee, and Aziz could definitely leverage that year into being a big time starter. Like he was a starter with the Tennessee Titans. The payday didn't match. I would imagine this time around he will get paid as a starter. Um, he's a baller. I was bummed when Aziz left. He was always a great player for the 49ers. He was super underrated, but he was the LB3 in our scheme. But obviously, unfortunately, with Dre Greenlaw tearing his Achilles, we don't know when his return will be. And there's a good chance Dre Greenlaw could miss a huge portion of the year. So maybe there's a chance that there could be a reunion in play. We saw him at the NFC Championship game. He was doing the breakdown with all the linebackers. He's a Niner for sure, but also with Aziz, he's got to get paid. So we'll see. Uh, yes, it's me, Ben MIA. You critical of Kyle? If so, why? Um, I don't think Kyle's been perfect for sure. I'm definitely not in the category of believing that Kyle should be fired. But I do think there's definitely room for Kyle to improve, adjust, and evolve, and attack games a little bit differently. I definitely think there's room for improvement for Kyle. I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not someone who thinks Kyle should be fired, though. That's definitely not where I'm standing on that topic. Corey says, does Wink Martindale run a 3-4 or a 4-3? I could be wrong, but I do believe Wink Martindale was hired already. You guys could correct me if I'm wrong as well on that. But I thought Wink was hired by someone just recently, even over this Super Bowl weekend. But apparently I have to do some major research on defensive coordinators so we could figure out who is going to be a good candidate here. Gizmo says replace our O-line coach. O-line was confused too often. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Obviously, I break down offensive line a lot on this channel, and defenses seemingly have have the answer of where we're sliding protections and what our rules are, and then they find opportunities to attack the weak spots of our offensive line as a result of that. I think Chris Forster is one of the best in the business. Um, I think that he has a lot of respect inside that building. So I don't know if they're going to get rid of Chris Forster. But again, like I don't know if the O line coach is necessarily the problem that everyone wants to focus on. I know it's easier to kind of use that person as the answer of whatever, of trying to move on beyond that. But I do think there was some other issues at play with the actual play, not necessarily the scheme. Again, that's a hard thing to discern when you're not in those meetings, you're not in those rooms, and you don't understand the nuances of what they're trying to accomplish, and we're just trying to guess at who's responsible for that. Um, Vrabel should also be assistant head coach. Helps Kyle. That's not a bad idea. Vrabel could absolutely come in, be assistant head coach. He has obviously the experience. He's done it before. And obviously the 49ers just lost their assistant head coach in Anthony Lynn. So the job is available. So he could be DC assistant head coach. Mike Vrabel does it for one season, and then he gets hired as a head coach elsewhere the following year. But again, I gotta figure out what scheme Vrabel's running over there. What about Bill Belichick for DC? Now, this is where I'm not sure. But see, I'm going back and forth just as I'm talking about it out loud because let's think about this. Belichick has a relationship with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. So I'm leaning towards he might be too rigid. Bill Belichick might be too, you know, old dog, not trying to change. He's got his own way of doing things. He's been a head coach for so many decades. Now he's got to go play second fiddle to Kyle Shanahan. But would Bill Belichick kind of take a DC role under Kyle to keep coaching, or would he sit out entirely this year because he's not going to get a head coaching job? So, like I said, the only reason why I'm actually starting to kind of think maybe it does work is because Lynch played for Belichick. Remember, Belichick traded Garoppolo to the 49ers basically off the relationship that they have together. So there is a relationship there. But also too, you also could have to think about it like this. Kyle Shanahan is the head coach, but he's also the head coach of the offense. Like the offense is his baby. And if you get a guy like Belichick, he would take over the defense. He would do everything on the defensive side. Kyle would not have to worry. I kind of think of when Sean McVay first got hired with the Rams. Do you remember that? We would see the shots of McVay just kind of sitting down, making notes while the defense was on the field because he had Wade Phillips as his defensive coordinator. Now, Wade Phillips was old as well, and he had been a former head coach and had some cachet in the league. I think it allowed Sean McVay to fully focus on the offense because he trusted Wade to do everything with the defense, and that allowed Sean to just do his thing. So that's kind of where, like, I'm originally not around to the idea of Bill Belichick, but as I'm literally thinking about it and talking about it out loud, I'm like, well, I don't know if Kyle trusted Steve. And I think that's a big part of it. I don't think he trusted Steve. I don't think he trusted how he called plays in certain moments. But if you have a guy like Belichick, you trust Belichick. You trust Belichick to do his job. You don't need to step in. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. This is crazy, guys. This is absolutely bonkers. Like I said, I wasn't super big on the idea of Belichick, but damn, the whole Sean McVay, Wade Phillips thing has me kind of thinking about it a little differently. It's like, well, Kyle could absolutely relinquish any responsibility on the defensive side and just give it to Bill or give it to Vrabel, give it to someone that you don't have to babysit. I think that's the biggest thing with Kyle. I think Kyle doesn't want to have to babysit. And I think he felt like, and again, this isn't a shot at Steve. I just feel like they weren't like synced up. So as a result of that, they had to like, all right, you got to come down from the booth. All right, we can't run zero blitz. So I think what Kyle is looking for is someone that he can just say, go run the defense. And that's what they do. And they own it, they take it, and they improve upon it. So I don't know. Could Bill Belichick be that guy? Shoot. How wild would that be? How wild would that be? That we wind up with Bill Belichick as a defensive coordinator. Again, I have no idea who the 49ers are going after. But that's a wild thought process. Bill Belichick, known as the greatest coach of our generation, with how many Super Bowls they won. And again, don't forget, like, there's this whole conversation. Is it Tom? Is it Belichick? Early on, it was definitely Bill. Bill's defenses were on point. And it's kind of a similar setup, right? You have a rookie, or not a rookie, you have a quarterback on a rookie deal. You have one more year of really being able to drop some chunk of change into some players before you really have to start getting creative with how you maneuver after paying your quarterback. So I don't know. A lot of people are talking about the windows closing with the 49ers. I think they have one more year of big time spending this upcoming season. So they could go out and get a Brian Burns. They could go out and maybe try to facilitate a trade for a Patrick Surtain. They could go out and make one huge move on the defensive side. And then if you can plop a coach in there that you trust, that can do whatever you need them to do, and Kyle can just tinker away on the offense and just keep his focus there. Boy, everything's in play right now. Oh, boy. How excited should you be over this? I don't know. That's a good question. I'll ask the same question to the chat. How excited are you excited about this move? Are you what's the emotion that you guys have surrounding this move? Let me know in the chat. I I'm not I don't love when people get fired, because I look at this from the human element as well. I look at it from a standpoint that, man, this guy just lost his job, and what that means for his family and those types of things. Like, I don't love that aspect. I never loved that aspect of these guys getting fired. However, I do understand that it wasn't the greatest fit, and it reared its head in the Super Bowl, and now we have an opportunity to potentially get a big time coach in here. So I'm not excited over the fact that the guy got fired, but uh, it's a little exciting to know that, all right, well, we have an opportunity to go out and try something new. And that's a little bit exciting, I think. I think it's exciting to know that, we could do something here that we haven't done in a while. Like, losing D'Amico was huge. Losing D'Amico was huge, and we tried our best to fill that gap, and it didn't work. So now, can you go out and get a baller? Can you go out and get a Belichick, a Vrabel? Because those two options are, I would say, at the top of the list. And to be honest, I would interview Richard Sherman. I would. I would give him a shot. I would I would see what it was about. Now, the thing is, if you're going out and getting Richard Sherman, I would say there's a little bit more hand holding to be had because he's never coached before. So that's the difference. I like the idea of Richard Sherman, but if you're bringing in Richard Sherman, you're bringing in a guy who's never been a DC before. He's never been a coach. Yes, he's played, but he's unproven in the coaching world. And so that's where I don't know if Kyle wants that. I think Kyle wants a guy that he can just say, here, take this, execute it. I'm going to worry about the offense. And then if you get a guy who is a former head coach, you can also bounce these things off a guy who, like Belichick. How many games has Belichick like prepared for? Would the whole overtime situation be different if you had a Belichick on the roster who's like, Kyle, we need to prepare for this overtime stuff. You know, this is something, hey, it's a new rule. We like, because I already referenced Belichick in the kind of the whole overtime fiasco, because Belichick, when they played the in the Super Bowl, they played the Seattle Seahawks, and they had that rub route called, right? The famous play where they didn't run Marshawn Lynch from the 1 yard line, right? And Bill Belichick all week with that defensive back, they were practicing rub routes on the goal line. And so they were completely prepared for when the Seattle Seahawks called that play. And that's why they got such a good jump on the ball and they got the pick, because Belichick prepared them for that moment. And it just feels like, man, if you bring a guy with that type of cachet, they're bringing a ton of experience with them as well, and ability to prepare their guys. So, hey, we'll see. I don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be fascinating. Batman says Kyle needs a coach that can check him in big games. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about. Um, it's kind of like what the thought process is like, hey, maybe a guy can come in and help Kyle in that regard, because Kyle already has so much on his plate that if you bring in a guy with head coaching experience and a lot of success at that position, that could really help. That could probably be opposed to kind of having to almost, and I feel like babysit it's kind of like a disrespectful term, but I can't think of a better term for like having to bring someone on. Kyle, to me, seems like he wants guys who do their job and he doesn't have to worry about them. And I don't feel like that he felt that with Steve, and I think that's part of the reason he's not here. Um, did they fire Wilks for muffing a punt and not pass blocking worth bleep, or maybe uh because Dre broke down? I get what you're saying here. I think, are you a Cowboys fan, by the way? Um, if you're a Cowboys fan buying a super chat on a 49er channel, we appreciate you. Um, But no, that's not why. That's not why. No, that's not why at all. All right, let's see what else we got. Shanahan made Wilks the scapegoat, says Hakeem the Dream. Weak mindset. You could look at it as a scapegoat, but honestly, I don't think it was a fit. I don't think it was a fit. And again, you talk about Kyle calling a timeout in overtime of the Super Bowl because he doesn't like the call that his defensive coordinator made. To me, that's a trust issue. That's a trust issue. I don't necessarily look at that as a scapegoat. I look at it as more as they didn't see eye to eye on how they needed to call games. And a big part of offense and defense in this 49ers team is playing complementary football. So the defense has to be complementary to the offense. Offense has to be complementary to the defense, and special teams complementary to both. And it just, if they're not seeing eye to eye, and you literally have Kyle calling timeouts on his own DC in the Super Bowl in overtime, I think that's a microcosm of just where we're at. I don't think it's scapegoating. I think they literally, I just don't think it was a good fit. Just like Kyle said, I believe him on that. I don't think it was a good fit. Ono says, need to fix our right side of the offensive line, get rid of McKivitz. It'll be interesting to see how the San Francisco 49ers do execute and build the offensive line. Jonathan Feliciano is a free agent. Spencer Burford, obviously lost his starting job this year. So I'm not sure how confident they are in running it back with Burford. So, yeah, I would imagine they'll be looking for a starter at right guard, whoever that may be. The thing with McKivitz is, and I prepared my followers and subs for this earlier, is that although you might not look at McKivitz as an elite left tackle or right tackle, which he's not, he is a serviceable right tackle. And if the 49ers can get him on a cheap deal, I actually would not be surprised to see McKivitz back. And I already know that none of you guys want to hear that. I'm just preparing you. I'm preparing you for what I could see happening, which is McKivitz signing a team-friendly deal, and then that brings him back with the ability to start next season. So I'm just saying, don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying, I'm trying to think like how they're going to think, and that could definitely be something that they do. We'll see. The 49ers haven't necessarily prioritized offensive line in the past, so that's just where we're at. That's just where we're at. Haha says we need a new O-line. Also, I believe they need to let Purdy have some control to the offense. I feel Kyle doesn't have 100% trust in him passing the ball. I think Kyle has trust issues with a lot of things. I think Kyle kind of has trust issues with a lot of things. That's why the defensive coordinator that we need to bring in, I think it needs to be someone that Kyle trusts, like already trusts, and has an opportunity to fit in. Boxing Fan says, is Jim Schwartz contract with the Browns done? I doubt it. And even if it was, there's no way the Browns are letting him go. Jim Schwartz has been a fantastic defensive coordinator. The Browns would be crazy to let him out the door. So I don't necessarily see that happening. Brother Bob says, Kyle wears too many hats: GM, head coach, OC, and party guy. Oh my goodness. Hey, I do think there's something to that, though. Kyle does do a lot. He does do a lot. And that's why I think that's why the issue with Steve was he already does so much, and now he's got to coach defense. or like help with the defense. I don't think that's what Kyle wants. So that's why I'm really like I don't think that Bill would come here or that Bill would fit necessarily. Um However, I think he wants someone that he doesn't have to worry about. I think he wants someone that he doesn't have to worry about. He doesn't have to micromanage. He can just say, "Go run the defense." And so that will be interesting aspect of it. Brandon says Bill as a Niners DC after heartbreaking loss would be the biggest story of the summer. Yeah, it would be. That would be. That really, really would be a crazy, crazy development. Um, it would be a crazy development uh, for the 49ers if that was to occur. That would be nuts if Bill Belichick became the DC. Ono says Belichick for DC would benefit greatly for our defense. And again, I think it would. I at first I was like, I don't think Bill would, but honestly, like we talked about, if you can put a guy over there that can run the defense and take some stress off of Kyle to allow him to run the offense, that could be something that we see. I don't know. I don't know. Bradley says, I don't want to get into politics, but he does say Purdy is a franchise quarterback. That I agree with 100%. I agree with that 100%. Um, if Kyle needs a so-called babysitter, he ain't it. It's not that he needs a babysitter. It's that he doesn't want to babysit. That's the point. He doesn't want to have to. He already has so much on his plate, just like the other super chat had said that he doesn't want to have to do that with the defense. He needs someone who can take over the defense. Um, yeah, so I'm kind of seeing what's going on with Kansas City, man. Apparently there was some crazy stuff that went down. Apparently one person has passed away. Absolutely gutted for the city of Kansas City to have to be doing that today. It's supposed to be a celebration. Obviously we aren't, in a great spot with that. But absolutely terrible what's going on with Kansas City right now. Devastating to hear that news. So my thoughts, prayers go out to those people who have been affected by that. That's nuts. Like that should be a time of celebration. That should be a time of of family, community, and that's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying. So man, my heart goes out to those people having to be in that scenario. Jeez, I can't even imagine. There's tons of kids out there. That's awful to hear. Absolutely awful to hear. So I'm sick hearing that. Um, that's that's awful. It's really awful. Um, Justin says, get Belichick in here before the draft. He's helped draft some great defensive player. That's another interesting point. That's another interesting point. Um, that's a very interesting point. Um, that is a very, very interesting point. Um, man, that's crazy. I'm seeing some of the stuff come out of the parade. Two Chiefs fans tackled the dude. Shout out to those guys, man. Those are heroes right there. That is crazy. What a Damn, that's nuts, man. Why can't we just have nice things? Ugh, hate that. Absolutely hate that. Um, but yeah, that. Ugh, it's hard to like shift gears in between like real world stuff and all that stuff. So that's just unfortunate, man. Just really unfortunate. Um, why can't Kyle target Kittle like Reed does Kelsey? That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know why. Um, it was so difficult to get Kittle involved, stuff like that. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Bullpup says Bill for head coach, Kyle's OC, PSDC calling it. Yeah, that's not happening. It's not happening. If Bill joins and the Niners defense is dominant and they win the Super Bowl, then it will make him a top contender for a head coach job and erase the narrative he is outdated. That's a 100%. That's 100% a great point. And they, like I said, there's a relationship. They have a relationship. Bill Belichick has a relationship with Kyle and John Lynch. And so again, what would Bill Belichick rather do? Would he come in and be the defensive coordinator, or would he sit out a year and maybe never get a head coaching job again? So very interesting. I'm kind of coming around to the Bill Belichick thing a little bit more. And something tells me too that Kyle isn't making this move without some kind of plans already in place. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like for Kyle to make this move this late in the game, he's already have to have an idea of someone who can come in and fill this role. So who knows? Who knows? Should Kyle consider Jim Schwartz? Kosurik worked under Schwartz in Detroit. My understanding is that Schwartz is under contract. Didn't Schwartz just win defensive coordinator of the year or something like that? Or coach, like assistant coach of the year, something like that. But I'm pretty sure he's under contract. He was the assistant coach of the year. So I'm pretty sure he's under contract. I don't think you can make a lateral move. I don't think you'd have to make that would be a lateral move for him. So I don't think they could technically take him away. But I'm pretty sure he's under contract. Let me double check. Jim Schwartz signed a 3-year deal. He signed a 3-year deal for 18. Oh no, that's Lions. Yeah, I don't know. I got to figure that out. We got to figure that out. Let's see. It would be nice to keep a DC for more than a year. Yeah, it would, but unfortunately, that's what happens when you have success. is that people are trying to either copy that or take that and emulate it themselves. So that's why we can't keep DCs. That's why we can't keep offensive assistants. We had uh, 3 offensive assistants hired away just this coaching period. It's constant. You've seen how much success Bobby Slowick has had. Now you're going to have Clint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator for the situation and the thing. The Saints. Um, Justin says, Brad, I got to say, I loved your speed rusher question to Bosa. Made me think of Javon Solomon. Bosa didn't like my speed rusher question. He did not like. He said nope. He said nope. And to be fair, I was like thinking about it. I was like, well, when you look at it, I was like, well, Myles Garrett's not a speed rusher. TJ Watt's not a speed rusher. I'm like, I'm like, Bosa's not a speed rusher. His brother's not a speed rusher. They have speed elements to their game, but they're more power based. I was like, you might be right. You might be onto something. You might be onto something. Yeah, he didn't like that. He's like, what are you saying, dog? That was funny. That was funny. And he gave a great follow-up answer too to why, which makes a lot of sense. But it's like, yay. Those speed guys, you gotta watch out for them. Insert Stone Cold theme music with Bill walking in, just the glass breaking. Barker, it's Bill Belichick. It's Bill Belichick. Ha says, crazy take. Want your opinion. So Jennings is a free agent. He's a restricted free agent. I officially learned that yesterday. He says, I believe we need to get him back. Also give him more targets because we underappreciate him. He hasn't been given the same opportunity that Debo has gotten. So this is the thing, is that Juwan Jennings is a restricted free agent, which means any team can negotiate with him and submit a contract to him. And that means that the 49ers would then have the opportunity to match. I believe the 49ers can also place a tender on him. So if they said, we're placing a 3rd round tender on Juwan Jennings, a team negotiates and signs him away, they also have to give up like a pick as well. That's my understanding of it. So the way that I'm looking at it is that I do think a team will actually try to sign Juwan Jennings. The thing is I don't believe that the 49ers would match. If Juwan Jennings gets a 3-year, $30 million deal, I don't think the 49ers are matching, and that they would take the pick that came along with it. Juwan Jennings is a former 7th round pick. They would see that as a return on investment. The thing is if a team comes knocking for Juwan Jennings, like you could think of maybe the Saints. Clint Kubiak just signed with the Saints. Maybe Juwan Jennings follows him and goes to the Saints and becomes a number 2 wide receiver, to Chris Olave. Or maybe Adam Peters wants to get a guy in there with that mentality, that energy, and the Commanders make a run at Juwan Jennings. So I don't know. I think Juwan Jennings might be kind of hard to retain, to be honest. And as we know, Juwan made some money in the Super Bowl. So I think Juwan actually might be kind of difficult to retain. So that's one thing that we have to keep in mind, is that he is a restricted free agent. Teams will have the opportunity to submit a contract to him, and the 49ers would then have to decide if they want to match that. And they got to pay Brandon Ayuk. They have other guys that they need to pay. So I really do think that an outcome that we could see is that a team comes, submits a deal, the 49ers don't match, and they go address wide receiver in the draft. I think that could be, I think that really could be a situation that we see again. I love Jawan. I think Jawan's a great player. I would love to keep Jawan around, but I also think Jawan's earned a payday. I think Jawan has earned a contract, and I don't think the 49ers, with understanding that they got to pay Brock Purdy pretty soon, and just kind of looking ahead, they got to pay BA. Um, that I don't know if they can pay three wide receivers the money that they are requiring. I think they would have to let JJ walk if he gets paid, and then have to go supplement with a cost controlled rookie or a cheaper veteran. That's kind of like, from a roster building standpoint, that's kind of where I'm seeing it going. But yeah, I do appreciate. I do think JJ's underappreciated. He all he does when he gets the ball in his hands is make plays. Jawan's great. Jawan's great, but like I said, I think Jawan could find himself kind of in that Kendrick Bourne situation. I don't know if he's going to find the same dollar figure that KB got, but I think he'll get paid, and I think it'll be a similar situation to Kendrick Bourne. Haha also says, also them injuries are killing Debo as a player. Yeah, Debo, like, we know it doesn't matter what any player it is. It's the best of ability is availability, and it's hard when you're banged up all the time, and that's just not a Debo problem. That's a problem with a lot of these players. Is it's a physical game. It takes a toll on your body, and when you play a physical brand of football, you're going to get dinged up a little bit. So yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough when these guys get dinged up, they get hurt, they go down. It definitely is challenging on the body, and it's challenging for their availability. That's for sure. Um, could we get Eric Bieniemy to take over Lynn's position, Bill and Vrabel for DC? Eric Bieniemy help with the offense. To be fair, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. I like Eric Bieniemy. I think he's got some juice. I know he's had some trouble sticking around certain places. But I kind of like Eric Bieniemy. I've seen him move around the combine. He seems to get a lot of respect from NFL players, NFL people. Um, you know, I don't know. I like Bieniemy. Like I said, I've been around him. Like, I've been at the NFL Combine. I see the way people interact with him. He seems like I've seen him well received by people in the NFL, by players, by prospects coming up saying what's up to him. Um, so I don't know. I don't have anything against Eric Bieniemy. So if he'd come over and he needs a shot, I'd give him a shot for sure. I think the 49ers should be trying to load up with as much talent as they can, because we know they're just going to get poached the next year. So why not? So why not? Um, I mean, Eric Bieniemy did have Sam Howell as like the leading uh was like leading in passing yards for like half the season. So I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I break down Washington Commanders tape. Um, but it would be interesting. It would be an interesting person to reach out to and potentially, I don't know. We'll see. I think the baseline is this, right? Is that we want the best staff possible. That's really it. We want to see the 49ers have their best foot forward to take this shot at another Super Bowl. I think a lot of people have said um, that the window is closed. I don't agree. I think we have one more year of being able to drop some coin on some free agents. We have 11 draft picks, and we can retool around this core and add some pieces and make another run at it. I really don't think our window is closed like people are talking about. I think having one more year of Brock Purdy on his rookie deal allows them flexibility to go out and chase this ring one more time before they have to start making kind of dramatic uh, cap decisions based on having to pay a quarterback. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Push all the chips into the middle. If you need to go get a big time DC, do it. If you need to go get some big time free agents, do it. We're hungry. We need a Super Bowl. We can't waste this window. We cannot. So, take advantage. Do what you have to do. Do what you have to do. If you have to get rid of Steve Wilks, do it. They don't have the patience. They don't have the time to wait around. They have to do it now. So, I'm all for them swinging for the fences. If they got to go get a Bill Belichick, whatever, do it. If you got to go spend some big coin on a defensive end this offseason, do it. Go do it. Do whatever you need to do to put this team in a position to go win a Super Bowl again. That's it. That's really it. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair for sure. Um, Justin says, Brad, have you seen any of the O-line battles from the Senior Bowl practices? No, I have not. I am behind on draft season per usual. But I do want to get up to speed on that. Because offensive line, I always scout offensive line, so it's not going to be anything new. Will the 49ers actually go out and draft any of these offensive linemen? Who knows? They're so like hit or miss when it comes to like prioritizing O-line in the draft. I scout them anyways. You guys already know. Yeah, I will be. This is the guy that I have my eyes on right now. Mahogany from Boston College. This is a guy that I'm definitely intrigued by right here. I think could be but we'll see. We'll see what the 49ers do. We'll see what they get after. But yeah, I need to catch up to speed on Senior Bowl stuff. Daquan says third down defense always had me worried, even if it was 3rd and 15. Soft coverages killed us, in my opinion. Yeah, that's one thing about Steve Wilks that I never totally vibed on. It was something that I just didn't. I'm not a defensive guy, so I can't sit here and say why he's doing it. My thoughts were it was kind of a bend but don't break mentality, but it was yeah, it was tough, man. The soft coverages, it felt like I tweeted about it after the Minnesota game. It was just like the 49ers defense um was giving away uh first downs, and I was so angry. Like, typically I don't get angry watching film, but I got really angry watching the defense's performance against the Vikings, and it was just soft coverage, free first down. I think I counted 19 what I call free first downs, where they're just like, "Here you go. Here's your first down." And yeah, the soft coverages, that was a challenge. And again, I'm not a defensive expert, so I can't speak to why they would be doing that. I can speak to I've seen it and it's not working and I don't like it. That's kind of what I would that was my that's my expert analysis on the soft coverages, is that we would constantly get gouged playing soft zones, and I didn't like it. I didn't I didn't like it at all. I was like, "What are we doing? Why are we giving them first downs? Why are we why are they dropping beyond the sticks? Why wouldn't they put their heels on the sticks and keep everything in front of them? Why are they going beyond the sticks and giving them a first down? Like, it made no sense to me. But I also am not a defensive expert, so I couldn't say, well, they're trying to do this, they're trying to manipulate that, they're trying to. I don't know. I don't know. Didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me, and I don't have the experience of playing defense to be able to be like, yeah, this is what they're trying to do. I just didn't like it. O'Shea, my guy. I think my guy's checking in from Uganda. Says special thanks or special teams and the offense lost the game, not the coordinator. If anything, fire Shanahan. Ooh, calling shots, calling for the coach to be fired. Again, I don't necessarily agree with firing Kyle Shanahan. To me, that's a bit of an overreaction. I understand people being upset with Kyle Shanahan. That I understand. I understand people questioning some of the decisions that he made and the calls that he made. That I understand. Um, the firing part of it, to me, just doesn't make sense. I think that's way too soon to have that conversation, because we can't act like we can't act like he hasn't had success doing what he's done. Right now, what we're stuck with is getting over the hump of just winning the freaking Super Bowl. That's just where we're at. Like, that's the hard part, is like, he's done everything else pretty dang good. And even with the issues and mistakes that have been made, he's been able to overcome them. And that's a huge part of what he brings to the table, is that, yes, drafting Solomon Thomas third overall over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson at the time, probably not the best idea in hindsight, especially the Patrick Mahomes situation. However, they were able to land George Kittle in the 5th round, and George Kittle has become the face of the NFL, one of the faces of the NFL. And you know, gets Dre Greenlaw on the 5th. They've done things well, they've done things not so well. Um, but they've been able to overcome it. The problem is that we're in that spot where we've had 10-point leads in multiple Super Bowls. We just can't close the door. We just can't close the door. That's it. That's it. Do I think you need to be fired for that? No, but I do think you need to look at yourself in look yourself in the mirror and have an honest conversation about what needs to be improved. Um, you know, do I think that means he needs to be fired? No, I'm not ready for that conversation yet. I feel like it's a bit premature for the success that he has had. Um, and also too, it's like, You wouldn't fire Kyle. If you're really going to move on from Kyle, you would trade him. You could probably get like multiple first round picks for Kyle Shanahan. See, that's the thing. That's why it's another reason why the whole firing notion just doesn't make sense. It's like Kyle Shanahan would be the most sought after coach within like the last 10 years if he was let go. And again, that's the disconnect that I think having the emotions of the Super Bowl losses and understanding as well that Kyle Shanahan, if he was let go, would probably be the most they'd probably be the highest paid head coach of all time if we let him go. Um, you just have to understand. Yes, are we disappointed with some of the outcomes? Yes. But Kyle Shanahan is still one of the top coaches in the NFL, and he still has plenty of years ahead of him. And he can continue to improve, continue to evolve, continue to grow, and continue to get better. So we gotta be we I don't think firing is the answer. Firing's not the answer in my opinion. um, Evolving, growing, yes, of course. Kyle's not a perfect product. He has room to improve, but is firing him the answer? No. If you really want to get off Kyle, you're trading him because you're getting multiple first round picks for him because that's how in demand Kyle Shanahan would be. There'd probably be 10 teams that would fire their coaches right now to get Kyle Shanahan, and you want to fire him. That's the point. I get it. You're upset. You don't like a lot of these things. I get it. But there's 10 teams right now who are firing their coach. They're giving him walking papers and trading a first round pick to go get Kyle Shanahan. So you can't fire that guy. You might not like some of the outcomes. I get it. But you can't fire Kyle, man. That's just not where we're at. Maybe one day that conversation uh, grows some real legs, but that conversation doesn't exist right now. It just doesn't. It's just it's just people who are upset with the outcome of the game, wanting like that's the fan reaction. The fan reaction is, oh, I don't like this change, fire. It's very common. Um, Sherman for DC says Americ trade Ayuk to the Giants for offensive tackle Evan Neal. Evan Neal isn't good, from my understanding. So I don't like that idea off the bat. Fourth best PFF grade. If I'm think Evan Neal is the ginormous, unless I'm mixing my tackles up. Evan Neal is like the monster tackle out of Alabama who doesn't move well. Yeah, I don't think Evan Neal is very good so far in the NFL. Now that can change. But yeah, I wasn't a big Evan Neal guy. I was an Ike Ekwonu guy. Ike Ekwonu fits more my mold of offensive lineman. Evan Neal, he was too big for me, too slow. I get it. You're trying to bolster the offensive line. I get that. Draft Jerry Rice's son, Brandon, 6'4", 445 receptions, 791 yards, 12 touchdowns, 49ers saved cap space. I don't mind the Brendan Rice idea. I think Brendan Rice showed out at the Senior Bowl. I don't mind that idea. I don't love the Ayuk for O'Neal, though. That's for sure. Sherman for DC. I like the idea of Sherman as a coach. I'm not sure if I'm ready to give Sherman the DC role, though, yet. He's never coached before. And that would be kind of crazy to just give him the DC role, like right out the booth. I would bring him in as a coach though. That's for sure. What about Brandon Staley for DC? I wouldn't mind that. I know Brandon Staley wasn't the best head coach, but I've always liked Brandon Staley's temperament. Um, Now, again, I'm not sitting here studying Chargers defensive schemes or anything like that. Uh, but Brandon Staley would be an option that I would be open to. It wouldn't be an option that I would be terribly upset at. I'd be open to it. Ono says, Moody, your thoughts? I think Moody's fine. I do. Um, I think Moody will be all right. I think Moody just needs time. He just needs to build up that confidence. He needs to build up that thick skin. He needs to build up, um, just kind of being more consistent. He has the ability. That's not his problem. It's just kind of some spots can get away from him, but outside of that, as long as Moody can continue to be consistent, he has the leg. He made some big kicks. Um, he missed some kicks, obviously, that had impacts on the games this year. But that's what you get when you draft a rookie kicker. Um, so I'm down to ride it out. I'm down to give him the time he needs, and hopefully he'll be what we hoped he would be when we took him in the third. Um, that's the hope. Is he made some big kicks in the Super Bowl. That's why I'm like, he had the blocked PAT, I believe it was. Um, was that on him? I don't know. Was it a low kick? That's what people are saying. I don't know. But he also made some big time kicks as well. And so that's the thing, is that if he completely melted, yeah, we would be having a different conversation, but he didn't. So, um, Moody has shown enough that he deserves the leash to get more opportunities for sure. Um, Offense 3 of 12 on third down. Yeah, I mean, that's not good. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable at all. That's a big thing that we got to fix. But also part of that context too is the 49ers found themselves in a lot of third and longs. Uh, so I think that part of the context was they had penalties, they had some busted plays, um, and this 49ers offense doesn't work well when they're playing from behind, like behind the sticks. It's just not how it works. And so when we find ourselves in those situations, we're way less efficient than we normally would be. So yeah, wasn't ideal from a third down conversion standpoint, but yeah, I get it. I definitely get it. Shout out Teddy, appreciate the super sticker. O'Shea says Kyle is a great coach. Also, Purdy missed reads and blaming the DC who adapted the verbiage from the previous coordinator was altruism at its finest. But the defense held Mahomes to 19 points. We missed the extra point. Listen, I think there's a lot of things at play here that we don't know. Again, we react to things that are happening on Sundays, but the games are won in huge part from Monday to Saturday. And those are things that we don't see, and we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And clearly there was a trust factor there. So that's really what it is. I think it comes down to there's a trust element that wasn't there. And so Kyle made a change. And I also, like I was saying earlier, I do believe Kyle makes this change with kind of understanding that where he's going next. I would imagine he's got some candidates lined up and all those different types of things. Um, and the whole Purdy missing reads thing, I thought Purdy played pretty darn well. So was Purdy perfect? No, he wasn't, but neither was Patrick Mahomes. So I thought Purdy played pretty well for the most part. I came away from that game thinking that Purdy was the moment wasn't too big for him. I felt like he handled himself well. Purdy absolutely proved to me that he could win a Super Bowl. That's what I learned. Like that's my takeaway from what Purdy did. Um, he made some big plays and big moments. He converted some big time third downs. Um, all that type of stuff. Yeah, I've actually been trying to get through the tape. I'm halfway through the tape. It's been challenging today because obviously we've had a bunch of news drop. So I might have to do the film breakdown later this evening. But again, I want to get it done. Um, but obviously the Steve Wilks news has kind of hijacked the day. But yeah, so far, like I said, I'm halfway through the tape. Purdy's played well. I don't see any issues so far with Purdy. Was he perfect on the day? Did he have a miss here or there? Sure, but it happens. You look across the other side of the football, Patrick Mahomes struggled as well. So if we want to be honest with ourselves of how much of the struggle there was, we can talk about that. Let's see this one. Shanahan 4 Super Bowl losses, a pattern. Yeah, there's a bit of a pattern. For sure. For sure. I think Kyle tenses up in these big moments. I think he plays not to lose, and I think he can definitely um he can definitely find himself in a scenario where I think he gets a little hesitant to make mistakes, and it kind of feels like it almost manifests mistakes at the same time. Um, so I think I would like to see Kyle just get a little bit more loose, get a little bit more loose, get a little bit more aggressive. Like just play with a play. I want to see the offense kind of operate with a little bit of a I don't give a F mentality, like a little bit, Like I feel like sometimes um you can tighten up a little bit, you just kind of tighten and like start to play not to make mistakes, and then just want to see it kind of loosen up a little bit. Loosen up, get after it, all that type of stuff. And people never talk about this either. People never talk about this with Kyle Shanahan, and that's why it's like again, just be chill, just be patient. Just be patient. He's still a young coach in the grand scheme of things. Andy Reid lost 4 Super Bowls before he won his first. So I guarantee you, if you called for Kyle Shanahan to be fired and then he goes and wins multiple Super Bowls and becomes the greatest head coach of all time with another team, you would say that the 49ers were idiots for firing him. So again, you can't have it both ways, man. You can't have it both ways. We just got to be patient. And we just got to let this, we got to hopefully, evolve a little bit. And hey, look at what Andy Reid has been able to accomplish. Um, so just got to give it some time, man. Has he been perfect? No, we're not saying that. We're just saying though, we also know that he's a good coach that deserves more opportunities because I don't want to see him have the success that we were supposed to have here with another team, and then have someone take over for the 49ers and just be awful. That's literally the worst case scenario imaginable. So definitely don't want to see that. Let's see. Isaiah says, Brad, did you hear how Shannon Sharp blamed Brock Purdy for the loss? The hate for our quarterback is egregious. No, I did not actually. I did not. I'll have to go watch that. Shannon Sharp low-key been a Brock Purdy hater, though. Like, Shannon Sharp has definitely been a guy that doesn't see Brock Purdy in the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen tier, which he's not. But because he's not in that tier, it automatically means he can't be a good quarterback. So listen, I get the thought process. Brock will never be Patrick Mahomes. He is a different Brock is a different type of quarterback right now than those guys, and that's why people just have a hard time giving Brock his credit, because again, it's we made the analogy. Brock Purdy is Batman and Patrick Mahomes is Superman. They're superheroes, but they're superheroes in their own different ways. Superman can fly. He's like invincible. He's super strength, right? He's like a superhero. And then you got Brock Purdy, who's got the tool belt. He's got all the different weapons, and he knows how to use them and when to use them, and he's effective in his own way. He's just not Superman. And people have a hard time understanding, the differences between the two. Doesn't mean you can't find success with either one, but it's kind of where we're at. Teddy says, can D Winters play Dre's role to start? Absolutely, he can. So, and I would say Jalen Graham would be a guy too to keep your eye on. For sure. Oren Burks also played pretty well for the most part. I was pretty impressed with some of the plays that Oren Burks was making. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I do think D Winters could play that role. We'll see if he makes a big second-year jump. Justin says, I watched all the O-line, D-line Senior Bowl practice, and that Washington right tackle Roger Rosengarten really stood out to me. All right, I've definitely heard that name. I've definitely heard that name quite a bit, so that could be a guy that I'll definitely look into. Shout out to everyone sending super chats, trying to get through these as quickly as I can. O'Shea says, Kyle offense contains the 7th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, the highest paid running back, the NFL 3rd highest paid tight end, and the NFL's 3rd highest paid left tackle. And Brandon Ayuk, that offense put up 19 points in regulation. Absolutely. They're going up against a defensive coordinator who has now won 4 Super Bowls, and clearly has been a big part of that as well. So again, you have to understand they also get paid millions of dollars on the other side. Chris Jones is arguably the most underrated player in this league. George Karlaftis, so far already running through the tape, is a game wrecker. Leo Chanel is all over the place. Nick Bolton is a great linebacker. Trent McDuffie literally wiped a touchdown off the board. So you got to give credit to the other side too, man. Like, I get it. You're upset. I'm upset too. We should have won that game. We absolutely should have won that game. But I mean, there's a lot of factors at play, and we can't just sit here and talk about like, oh, we're garbage because we played against a good team that played us well. Like, are there things to improve and get better at? Absolutely. But they also made it very challenging on us, and they made it difficult on us because they're well prepared and they're well coached too. Joe Woods was the passing game coordinator in 2019. Joe Woods. Joe Woods. That sounds like a defensive coach to me. Am I tripping off that? I thought he was a defensive coach. The 49ers just made some signings. Hold on. The 49ers have signed to future deals. So the 49ers have signed Alex Barrett, Austin Bryan, Corey Luciano, and T.Y. McGill to reserve future deals. So that move just went down. Some more off-season maneuvers. Let me get this posted. All right. Kyle needs to call the plane for Vrabel or Bill right now. I agree. I'm down for it. I'm down for either one of those two, to be honest. Richard Sherman for DC. He is needed again. I'd bring Richard Sherman as like a defensive backs coach or something. I would like to. I'm hesitant to give a DC role to a guy who's never coached in the NFL before. So I would definitely be open to the thought of bringing him in as a coach. Just I don't know if I'm ready to give him the DC role just yet. Kyle needs to believe in Purdy, meaning if they are blitzing, aka man to man, let CMC go into the slot more. I believe if they put him in the slot, Purdy would have had a better chance of reacting to the D. I mean, they use a lot of elements of CMC like a slot receiver just coming out of the backfield. They run a lot of Texas routes, they run a lot of choice routes. Whereas if he is kind of like the he's kind of like a slot guy. They use him a ton in like these elongated trips formations where it's kind of like he is a slot, but they use him out of the backfield. So I kind of get what you're talking about. But yeah. Do you know Sisyphus? Sisyphus. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Cursed to roll a boulder up a hill only to have it roll back down. That's it. That's what it feels with the 49ers. Hey, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we aren't paying. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. Yeah, that's one of the things, man. We know a lot of pain. Lot of pain, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of being at the mountaintop, and like you said, just rolling back down. Um, yeah, that's a good analogy. I'm not familiar with it, but yeah, it's like a good analogy. You roll the boulder up the hill, you get to the very top, and then it just falls back on you. We have yet to push it over the other side, and it's something that we're gonna have to do again. That's the crazy part about it is we got to go and do it. Thank you for standing up for Kyle and Purdy. Listen, I get it. I get it. People are emotional. People want change. People want different outcomes, right? That's the ultimate goal. Is just like that last super chat said. Is we are trying to push that rock over the tip of the mountain, and it seemingly just keeps falling back on us rather than actually accomplishing the goal that we want. So I get it. It's frustrating. It's tiring. It's exhausting. It's maddening. It's saddening. Like whatever freaking adjective you want to throw at it. 49er fans feel tortured right now because what is it? 4 NFC championships in the last 5 years, 2 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, um, and a lot of heartbreak. A lot of heartbreak. So many times just feeling like we're there. We should have it. This should be it, and it not being it. And I think that's the hardest part for me personally with this last Super Bowl loss is really the fact that we should have won that game. We should have won that game. That should have been the one where we got the boulder over the top and we didn't. And that's why it hurts so bad is because it should have been ours. It should have been the one. And it didn't happen. So it's unfortunate. But again, it's like if we get a stop, we win that game under the same circumstances of that game being played. No one's calling for Kyle to be fired. No one's crapping on anyone. They're talking about what a great story, what a great this, what a great that, even under the same circumstances in which the game was played. But again, you just make a couple different decisions later on in that game that changes the entire outcome. We're having a different conversation, but unfortunately, they lost again. So we lost again. People want changes. People want things to be different, and they want something else. And so I get it. I get it. It's not what we wanted. It's not what we were hoping for. And it's a shitty outcome. Sucks. But it's like people are saying, "I want Kyle to be held accountable." What does that mean? What does that mean? He just fired his defensive coordinator. I think that's kind of holding them accountable. He made a change to the staff that he felt was best for the team. He's not going to fire himself. They just lost 3 offensive coaches. What are you going to do? You got to go back to the drawing board and you got to figure it out. I don't think firing him is the right decision. So we'll see. So we'll see. But yeah, what a wild day. The San Francisco 49ers again have fired Steve Wilks, and boy, crazy. Absolutely crazy. Wasn't really expecting it, but here we are. And so that opens up the door for the potential of, you know, Bill Belichick, Vrabel, someone else. So we'll see. We'll see. But appreciate all you guys for tapping in. We had a lot more people than usual. So if you guys haven't subbed to the channel, would appreciate it if you did. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, we would appreciate that as well. I get it. It's a rough time to be a 49er fan with the way the 49ers went down and lost the Super Bowl. But we're going to keep coming to you guys with off-season content updates. We're going to start looking at free agents. We're going to start looking at the draft, breaking down prospects. We're going to start doing all that good stuff. I'm still trying to get through the tape on the offense so we can do a little bit of an offensive film breakdown, put this game to bed so we never have to talk about it again, and we can start building for like the analogy. Let's start pushing that boulder up and trying to get it over that freaking mountaintop, man. So hey, listen, I'm here with you, man. I feel it. I feel your pain. I feel your anger. I feel your disappointment. I feel all the emotions that you feel. I've been a lifelong 49er fan as well, so I get it. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I get it. It sucks. Don't love it. But trust me, I know it feels really bad now, but it will get better. I promise you. Promise you that. So shout out to everyone who's tapped in. Appreciate everyone who subbed to the channel. Appreciate everyone who liked the video. If you stayed for this whole time, grab a whole handful of cookies on your way out. We almost went 2 hours on this one. So appreciate everyone who tapped in, send a super chat. And like I said, either just watched and or smash that like button and subbed. Appreciate all the gang in here. Shout out to the OG SDS. Shout out to the new SDS. I appreciate all of you guys. Y'all are the best. And I agree. Stay strong, faithful. We are challenged, but we are not defeated. We will keep going and appreciate all you guys. Yeah. Grab a slice of sourdough bread on the way out. All that good stuff. Appreciate y'all. I'm out of here for now. Peace.